Hey guys, Chad here from Take It or Leave It, here with the upcoming movies that are releasing in July. And the main purpose for this section is to give you guys a one-stop shop for figuring out what's coming out, when, like what day, and where you can find these films. Alright, with that down, let's get into the first week of July. On the 1st, we have The Twin, and on the 2nd, we have Jurassic World Rebirth, 40 Acres, and Kill the Jockey. Look, I don't mean to come out of the gate negative, but I've given up on the Jurassic World franchise, and from what I've heard about Rebirth, it sounds like it's just more of the same. And I actually saw 40 Acres early, and I thought it was a pretty good little indie dystopian action thriller. Yeah, definitely check it out if it looks interesting to you. And lastly, for this week, we have Kill the Jockey, and this seems like one part Guy Ritchie, one part Wes Anderson, and one part Yorgos Lanthimos, so I'm definitely curious about this one. And now moving on to the second week of July, we have Else and the Shrouds coming out on the 8th, and Zeum coming out on the 9th. And on the 11th, we have Push, Abraham's Boys, A Dracula Story, Forgive Us All, Don't Log Off, Superman, To a Land Unknown, and Nuked. Some standouts for this week include Else, which to me might be my most anticipated film of the month. It looks super artsy with a lot of body horror, definitely like Cronenberg meets Panos Cosmatos. And speaking of Cronenberg, if you haven't seen The Shrouds and you're a fan of his, you should definitely check it out. I thought it was pretty strong. And I'm not sure if I'm excited for Zeum, but it looks like The Raid meets 28 Days Later, so maybe it's for you. And a critic had this to say about Abraham's Boys, A Dracula Story. Abraham's Boys is a continuation of Bram Stoker's Dracula, a quiet, slow-burning exploration of the complexity of familial ties, history, and purpose. Then we have Don't Log Off, and I'll just say right now, this should only be explored by found footage and desktop horror junkies such as myself. Otherwise, it's probably a pass for you. And then there's Superman, and look, I'm a Snyder fan, okay? I'll just say it. You know, I'm not one of those toxic dickhead Snyder fans, but I do like what he did with the DCEU. But that being said, I'd love to have this Superman movie knock me on my ass. And the last standout for this week is Nuked, and this is just kind of an old school end of the world raunchy rom-com driven by an ensemble cast. So if that sounds interesting to you, definitely check this one out. But now we're going to move on to the third week of July, which starts off with Iconic coming out on the 15th. Then on the 18th, we have The Banished, I Know What You Did Last Summer, Bury Me When I'm Dead, St. Clair, Woken, Eddington, and Drowning Dry. The biggest standouts for this week include The Banished, and here's the synopsis for that one. After her brother mysteriously goes missing, Grace ventures into the dangerous wilderness to find him. As she uncovers the horrific truth of his disappearance, she is faced with a darkness which threatens to claim her as well. I'll just say too, based on the trailer that I saw, there's definitely a cult element to this, so if that sounds interesting, definitely put this on your watch list. And then there's I Know What You Did Last Summer, and look, I'm curious about this remake. I mean, the trailers feel really tropey and less serious, and yet far more brutal than any of the other films that came before it. And then there's St. Clair, and I'm getting some Frailty meets Man on Fire / Dexter vibes from this, and that sounds like an awesome mixture, and I hope that this is a winner. And then there's Woken, and I'm actually pretty excited about this one. I really like the trailer, and here's a snippet from a critic's review. They said that this is a flawed yet fascinating descent into disquieting folk horror depths, skillfully mining dread before somewhat scrambling the existential themes it so tantalizingly introduces. For the brave soul seeking an atmospheric head trip bristling with bleak potential, Woken should thoroughly wake you from complacency. The next standout is clearly Eddington, and I'm hearing mixed to positive things about this movie, but look, it's Ari Aster, so yeah, I'm gonna give it a chance. And lastly, for the third week of July, a critic had this to say about Drowning Dry. This film is what Final Destination would be if it was a meditative drama without the jump scare gimmicks or cheap thrills. And another critic said that although it won't be to all tastes, audiences open to a different sort of world cinema that repays careful attention should find it a stimulating and imaginative work. Drowning Dry's got a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes, so if all that sounds interesting interesting, definitely give this one a shot. And for the last week and a half of July, starting on the 25th, we have The Home, Monster Island, House on Eden, Osiris, The Fantastic Four First Steps, and Star People. Then on the 27th, we have ICK or Ick, not sure which one it's supposed to be, but you'll figure it out. Then on the 29th, we have Never Blink. And finally, on the 30th, we have Together. Some standouts for this last week and a half include The Home, which I was getting some Get Out vibes from this particular supernatural retirement home horror film starring Pete Davidson. Monster Island looks like an action horror creature feature with some practical effects. And once again, for House on Eden, this is probably only for the found footage fiends such as myself. The next standout is, of course, Fantastic Four, and to my utter surprise, I loved Thunderbolts, so let's see if the MCU can go 2 for 2. Then there's ICK, and I'm gonna call it ICK, alright? It's in all caps, there's no like exclamation points after it, it's just ICK, all caps. We're going with that for now. But this one feels like a live action anime with a big dash of 2000s nostalgia. Also, does Brandon Routh age? It doesn't seem like he does. And the last standout for the month of July is Together, and this was one of the more skin-crawling movie trailers of the year so far. Here's hoping this body horror film uses some practical effects. But those are just my thoughts, take it or leave it. What do you guys think? What do you think of this list? What are the standouts to you? Did I miss any that you think should be on this list? Let me know down in the comment section, let's talk about it. And if you enjoyed this video but you want more information about what's on my watch list, what I'm currently watching, the kind of ratings I'm giving these films, as well as upcoming releases I'm looking forward to, don't forget to follow me on track.tv. My username is TIOLI_reviews. The link is in the description box. Go ahead and click it and start following me on Tracked, and I look forward to seeing you over there. And as usual, guys, thank you so much for stopping by my channel. I really appreciate it. Don't be afraid to hit that like and subscribe button. And until next time, I'm Chad from Take It or Leave It, and I'll check you later.
Check you later. Check you later. Hey, man, get off my case. Oh, man. Chicks don't want to hear that shit.